where has investment been put, and the supporting information as far as investment is. OCIAT, we also have the people who are living in poverty. We also have population that is undernourished. A lot of detail that we have for all the 419 market segments that we have. Learned in the period that we've been putting together that data. One, the approaches to center and core to core, and there's a need for us to start. And in phase 2, where we'll be talking about this, you will see that we have something that is helping us as far as standardization is concerned. And it's something that's in details to be able to see how do we enrich this data set that, be it segments, that it communicates the same across the board. Then the question that was earlier asked, this was primarily done with the help of but there's a need to involve a more multidisciplinary team, because we know member has a contribution that will help us to be able to refine this information, because we talked about the target product profiles and being able to be a good for the breeding program. So we believe that involving more team members, we will be able to enrich the process, and therefore our goal of adoption, which is our end goal, will be easier, because we will have very refined product profiles that are addressing the market needs. Also, the completeness of the information varied from center to center, and something that we are also currently, because some of them were very broad, such that when now you come to the target product profile, it's market segment that has been defined is so broad, you cannot traits, such that you would wonder which product would have all those traits. So something that we are working on the level of completeness. Maybe. And then.
Just so you present. Thank you for the very nice presentation until now and the plans. And I would like to work in prioritization, in which you, for example, you might have a market that has a very high value, but is not impacting in terms of poverty or malnutrition, undernourishment. So how that could be worked out, because usually those markets with high value might be targeted by others besides CGs. So especially private companies they might be the scope for them. But how it might, or vision, how it might work when we go to these kind of decisions that are not very broad markets with a high number of hectares, but and very low values in terms of dollars, and very important in terms of covering or relieving from poverty.
And basically, how I look at that, I look at it. There are market segments that have very high values, and one would have a skew as far as maybe even allocating resources is concerned. But also, there are other market segments that have already been identified that would be the future. And right now, the metrics that we are looking at are very low. So it's balancing our portfolio in terms of also meeting the future needs. There's some markets very low right now, but that's where the future is headed. And therefore, when it comes to investment cases, that we would look at the drivers and assumptions. If, for examples, biofortified, let's say, cassava, it would look very low in terms of the number of people that are already there, but that's where the future is headed. Then we would expect that maybe the fresh and dry roots cassava would be cannibalized in by the biofortified, and we will see the percentage in terms of volumes and the people that are being impacted. Another example would be, let's say, maize that is OPVs at the moment. They're not using any hybrids at the moment, but based on maybe future policies, would need to look to really move them from OPVs to hybrids. And maybe right now there is even no data at all as far as hybrids are concerned. So there's a present need and there's also the future need, and we cannot just base our decision on that. We also have to have a future view, because we know that breeding takes time. Also need to have that balance between.
Thank you for the nice presentation.
My question is how we are aligned with the national programs, because ultimately our goal is to provide the germplasm or any technology that is fruitful to enhance the agricultural production to the national system. So is there any knowledge gap about this market segmentation?
Thank you. A very good question, which will be addressed in phase 2, and we'll be giving an example. As a base, we started just with the CGs and at one CG sub-region level. But we do realize that there's a need, and that's where the NAS partners really lie. And able to refine the market segments that we have. Actually, one of the where we had national partners who we have process of market segmentation, those needs that are more localized as opposed to higher level way of looking at it. To create any impact then, that is what will be done in the next phase, to be able to enrich this data, not
My point is a bit following what my Amanda said, and I was wondering if there's an information about the seed system in those places, so that we can also know who is already there as other companies providing varieties, but also what is the capacity in that particular market segment to have a seed system.
I like the discussions in this group because they are really forward-looking, and that's exactly some of the discussions that we have had based on the market segments that we have. We need to identify where our private sector players play, so that there's also no duplicate. Doesn't really help to play in the same market segment where there are other players, and they're also creating impact. So we would need also to look at where are the synergies, where are gaps within the market segments, and where do we fit in? Because like we said, our metrics is to create impact. The metrics for the commercial companies is profit. And for us, we also have to go back and look based on the information that is there, market segment, and is there need for us to play? And the justification for us to play in a segment where the private sector is playing is when we identify there's a gap that is not being met by the private sector. Because you do realize that for the private sector, for some of the markets, they are very never pass as far as R&D is concerned. So yes, there could be some private sectors, but if there's a specific need that needs to be met, then the private sector is not willing to play. I'll give an example of East Africa, where we have many players for maize, and a few years ago we had MLND, liver process disease. And yes, we have a private sector playing, but the private sector will not invest in R&D. And again, that's a crop. Maize is a food security crop. It's a staple in East Africa. So yes, we have private sector playing in that sector, in that market segment, in that crop. However, there was a need to get in and fill that gap. So it's on a need-to-need basis that we need to evaluate so that there's no duplication and also there's no gap by assuming that there's a player on.
There's also an added value of what's the small seed companies or others that could not be even just helping us to spread the developments or seeds technology plans that we are working with. So it might be also important not to understand where is the private companies, but also the small and medium-sized seed companies are really important people that we need to relate with to be able to help in those probably small market segments. Their capacity as partners, or if they don't have probably a very good link with NARS, we also might be working in that issue. And I have also a question about you were talking about mitigation, climate change. So we in CIAD we have some examples in which we work with data scientists for modeling climate change and modeling other very important insights regarding soil types, and I think that might be also important in that disciplinary team that you might build to have these insights, because, for example, we have a very important problem with non-grain filling, and it comes even from diseases or from climate change incidents with high temperatures. And we started working for that like 5 years ago, and now it's very dramatic. We need to release something quite quick, but that's the kind of things that we might help and gain some time in that regard.
Yeah, engage you maybe during break to hear more about it. It's that we will need more input in terms of experiences from various CGs so that we can learn from one another and steer.
Yes, my question is mainly about the data quality, the reliability of the data. So you showed us some chart is based on some data. So we know the data for each country is probably pretty clear from FAO or STAT. But for each product, and like for there are 4 products, the percentage or the amount for each product in each country, it might be not that accurate. So you mentioned, so we are going to include the multidisciplinary team work on that. So can you please explain a little bit about that?
Yes, good question. Yes, we do need to refine the outlooks of the market segments. And again, going back to what we said, this is a base. And definitely once we engage on the multidisciplinary team, there's going to be input that will, definitely there's a lot of discussion and questioning that will now help us to get to a consensus as far as various market segments are concerned. So that will be the next step, now looking at the data and being able now to look critically. What does this data really stand for? Can we stand with this data? Do we need to adjust it? How does the future look like? Because again, based on the question that had been asked, there's a present and there's also the future to be able now to shape the decisions that we're going to make. So, and that's why the multidisciplinary team is very critical, because it brings knowledge and wealth of knowledge that will help us to really have solid data that would help us to make good decisions. Yeah.
So another question is about the accountability. So we provide the target product profile to the brilliant team. So the brilliant team will use it as guideline for your decision making. So how about, what's the thoughts about accountability in the 1CG? So we make sure somebody will be responsible for this target product profile. So if anything, so if the target is not set correctly, somebody will be taking the responsibility. So if the TVP is set correctly, somebody will get the credit. So,
okay.
So
very good question. Again, very futuristic, and in terms of where we are headed. We realize that the initiatives that have come up, right now we have the MIPI, the Market Intelligence Initiative, which will be responsible for the target, for the market segments, and also the target product profiles. After that has been made, that will be handed over to ABI, who will be looking at really like a quality control check as far as implementation is concerned. So there's that handover from one team to the other, and making sure that there are stopgap measures that have been put in place to really like verify in terms of what is passed, the target product profile, the market segments, and also the target product profiles based on the teams that have been put in place. It's still young, and I know Jan will be talking about it later in terms of how they tie together with the initiatives, but it's something that is already being worked on, so that the ball is not dropped at any level, because you realize there's a lot of work that will be done. If the ball is dropped at, let's say, a target product level, target product profile level, then we won't be able to meet our objectives. So there are plans that are being put in place. It's still young, but I know we'll be able to strengthen it and move forward.
Yeah, I believe we all can see the challenge. So even there is some overlap there for the market segment. There, probably there are also still several hundred market segments, right? So if for each market segment we need to have one product profile. That's to get the high quality of product profile, there's still a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, but because it is based on teams, then it becomes easier. Let's not get stuck at the 419. When you come to your region and the crop that you're working on, it is very now easy with a multidisciplinary team to be able to dig in and come up with very refined information that will be able to help in decision making. Yeah. So I think we'll move on. Two last questions, then we move on. Then if there are others, then we can have one-on-one discussions.
Yeah, maybe the answer will be short. I just wanted to know if we consider the processed products, is there any strategy to include also the processors consideration, not to in order to break, let's say, the link between the growers and the consumers? And my last question, just quickly, still talking about adoption, is there any strategy for adoption of the final product? Because we have seen before that a lot of product had been developed, maybe not with as many detail as we are seeing now, but still it would not be adopted. So is there any strategy to really include all, let's say, users in the pipeline so they will feel identified with what we are developing? So once it's developed, the adoption will be easier.
Maybe I'll start with the last question. We have the seed systems, and we have seed equal, which again, at the tail end of the presentation, we'll see how there's the link So there's some work that is being discussed. It's still not very solid, but I believe that will help as far as product adoption is concerned. Again, there's the one thing that we also need to meet. Having the right target product profile. The moment we meet the market need, then that will also be able to spur the adoption. The awareness creation piece, we could have some gaps, but I believe it's something maybe in the future that would be considered. Yeah, because we really are not like the commercial companies where there are product launches and really campaigns and creating awareness. But I know with NAS partners, it's something that can be done. It may not be at the same level as the commercial companies, but there are partnerships that can be forged as far as awareness creation and adoption is concerned. Sorry, I forgot the first question. Oh, the processors. Yeah, very good question. Again, that goes to the next level of the phase 2, where once we engage the NAS partners, there's also now that other area of the other stakeholders that are involved in this. And we can't leave them behind. Though at the same time, we have to also need to be strategic enough not to make it very complicated so that we are not able to achieve much because of bringing in everybody on board. We need to have contact people who can be able to get that information. And talking of the multidisciplinary team, we have some of our colleagues who really deal with the processors and deal with the consumers directly. Then they will be able to feed back that information so that it doesn't have to be the breeder's work or the other team's work to go get that information. It is forming that multidisciplinary team and knowing who brings what input that will be able to help the process. So one last question so that we move to the next.
I have several questions, but the most important, I think, what is the view of the revision we need to have when there are new requirements of the users? For example, nowadays, the fertilizer have a high price. Yes. For the farmer is we need a new variety that using these low input, low heat swings, strokes. When we need to change immediately in the breeding program to order the requirement of the user, because the behavior of the consumer is not static. That the behavior of the consumer changes, it's life. And my worry is how the breeding program has the capacity of flexibility to respond with the same speeds at this change of the behavior, because the target profile is a challenger for the breeders.
Okay. Question. It is controlled flexibility, because we also have to realize we can't keep changing every other time because there are resources that are being put in place. So it is, I would call it controlled flexibility in this way. One, as far as the market intelligence is concerned, we talked about a balance between the present needs and the future needs. There are some needs that really, it's not an emergency. It's something that we saw it coming. Maybe policies have been put in place that would impact a certain crop. Maybe there are, the economy, there are things that are changing that would impact, and that's something that can be projected and put in consideration for the future market segments. But we also have other needs that arise, like a new disease, and that one would really warrant a specific change at that given time. So there are two ways of looking at it. There are those that we need to make projections by looking at market trends and putting that into consideration. And then there are others that really just come without anybody's control, and something has to be done real time. Yeah. Good, so we will move on to the not sure. Can't move with the pointer. Sorry? No, it's going on.
Yes, please. It's still the same presentation, it's moving on. It's only that this could not move. Okay. Are you able to remove this? Thank you. So we go to some work we've been able to do, and I'll move a little bit faster here. Some work we've been able to do to refine the current work that is ongoing, because we say that's the base, but it's the continuous improvement on the work that we are doing. One, on the standardization aspect, because we realized there were different methods that were used as far as market segmentation is concerned, we came up with some guidelines of how each market segment needs to look like, just to guide in terms of how we look at market segments. And also we did realize that the crops are different, and there are some things that we had put as a general guidance. They may be applicable to some other crops and may not be applicable to others. And so we are exploring in terms of grouping the crops that have more or less the same, they would have almost a similar approach, not so varied. And also, we are looking at how to work with ABI and also MIPI, so that this work, there is continuity. Because now we realize we are going to work packages and the initiatives, and there needs to be continuity as far as this work is concerned. So that's what we'll be talking about. Refining what we have already seen. So we've put up a structure for standardization where you in a market segment, ideally you would have the crop, one CG sub-region, then how the crop is used or consumed. Then you would have the grain color or flesh. For here, let's say even for rice, other aspects like aroma and such attributes would come here. The agroecological zone, then the production system, rain-fed, irrigated. Is it pure stand or is it mixed farming, claiming? Basically, here is where you have flexibility to put information on production system and also maturity. Is it early, late? So as a guidance on this. And what we did, based on the market segments that we had already received from the teams, we went through an exercise to look at the level of completeness, because we said that some were complete, others were not. And we've been able now for all the 419 to be able to look at the level of completeness, and we're being able to go back to the teams to be able to really have a more complete outlook. Like I said, crops are varied. Some may be relevant for some crop groups, and others may not be relevant for other crop groups. I talked of an example where we have involved NAS, and also looking back how the market segment had been defined and how it would look like based on those guidelines that we've talked about. And I'll be giving an example of cowpea. From phase 1, this is what we received from the teams. These are the 6 market segments that had been identified. Short duration white cowpea, short duration brown cowpea, medium duration. So you can see it is maturity and color only that has been used to define the market segment. And the question was, the moment you give, you go down to the level of coming up with a target product profile, how would you really be able to guide the breeder as far as what to breed for is concerned with such a broad market segment definition, given that consumer needs have not been put into consideration, the production system has not been put into consideration. So this is an exercise we had with the team, and it involved NAS partners and also CG. We did this work with IITA. And the first step was to ask what are the major uses of cowpea, and how and where is the crop grown, and also to identify the grower size. So when we did the exercise and asked how is the crop used, these are the various uses that came up. So we have boiled grain, we have dual purpose where the leaves are used and also the grain is used. For human consumption, we also have this one that is dual purpose for fodder and grain. Then we had other minor segments for flour, for fresh pod and industrial flour. So this gave us a view of how the crop is used, and this would be able now to also give some insights as far as the target product profile is concerned, as opposed to the broad view we had of just the color and the maturity period. The next thing was to ask, how is the crop grown? And during the discussion, it was realized all the crop is rain-fed, so we do not have irrigated. Then we have also, some do intercropping, others do sole crop, and others, where is it grown? And you can see we put a tick based on the questions that are answered as far as this is concerned. Lastly was to look at what is the size in terms of the growers. So here we saw that the crop is grown by large scale, 5%, large scale, 5%, and also the small scale growers. Sorry, there's a mix up here. It should have been sole crop here and intercrop here. So from here you can see that the small scale farmers, boiled grain and dual purpose, you can see boiled grain had 50% and dual purpose 29%, small scale 30%. So you can see, already you can be able to see which are the big market segments, and again, you would be able now to put more details. For this one, we've not put maturity. Now that would be the next step, to put a maturity and also to include where the crop is grown. But basically, this is just an example of how more details can enrich a market segment, and that would also advise the team that is coming up with the target product profile to come up with a target product profile that would advise the breeders accordingly. So as a summary, for the market segments piece, would need to look at the what, how the product is consumed, the how, the agronomics and the grower needs, and also the geography. That would give us a good view in general how the opportunity looks like as far as a given market segment is concerned. Then from there, we'd go to the opportunity description, the impact parameters, and I've liked the discussion we've had in terms of the possible metrics that we can look at that would back now the decision whether to really work on a market segment or not work on it. And the prioritization is really based on the desired impact. What is the objective of a specific breeding pipeline? Is it poverty reduction? Is it people that are undernourished? Is it sustainability? And I've liked the discussion we've had that already CGs are looking at some of the metrics that we've also not been able to look at the moment, because it is very important for us to be clear on the desired impact that we want to create. So the work has been ongoing. So the first level we had 419, now we have 428. Some of them will increase, others will be consolidated. Because what you realize, the example I've given about cowpea, you've seen that basically there are some needs that were not considered. Also, based on the target product profiles that we are currently working on, when now you go to the traits that are required for a market segment, sometimes you realize that you have similar traits for the same market segment. And that answers the question that they are essentially not different market segments, and therefore you need to consolidate them. So this is because it's the beginning. That's why we have seen an increase. There's a possibility of a decrease once we get deeper to some of those market segments that may have been split very far, and therefore when it comes to the target product profile, then there's no difference. So it's an ongoing exercise where we have to look at consolidation and also splitting others that cannot guide the breeder when you look at the target product profile.
So Agnes, in that nice healthy example, you show the challenge that basically the more features you put, basically the combinatorics become bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
In that table there was possible 36 market segments because everything was rain-fed. Potentially, I mean, there's more than rain-fed, and I guess you put more. So potentially, even a single crop could define 428 market segments if they come up with all the possible combinatorics. So what is the advice for them, to keep us focused, make sure that, I mean, you were putting kind of the size in those check marks, so you could see that almost everything or all the weights should go in those maybe 2 to 4 market segments. But in the CG, where basically we want to help as many people as possible, I guess that becomes kind of an issue also for the breeder to say, oh, but I would also like to help these people or that people. I mean, how do we keep this focus?
Good question, and maybe I'll go back to this. Maybe it wasn't clear enough. You can see these 4 ticks are bold and bigger. The rest are small. Again, would you come here and look at a 1%? Those are some of the decisions that would need to look at. Yes, there are very many uses, but would it make sense to really put effort on such a segment? No, unless that's where the future is headed, and therefore there would be phased resource allocation, where you have to make that deliberate effort to have market intelligence that informs the decision. So it doesn't mean that once you identify all the markets, some of these segments, that you put all of them there. There's a prioritization, and that's why these 4 ticks are the biggest, because you can see this is where the bulk of the people are. Again, there are also other drivers and assumptions that you would need to look at, like the question that was asked, if there are minority groups that are being left out by the big numbers, and maybe there's an actual need to address that. So it's not just looking at such a table and making a decision. There has to be other drivers and assumptions that would support putting effort into what has been identified.
But we really need to put those numbers, right? I mean, those percentages
Yes.
to take the decision. And who is the person that's basically coming up with those numbers? Is it the product managers, or who is coming up with those numbers, Agnes?
Yes. Like for this example I've given, this was a multidisciplinary team that had even gender specialists, breeders, nurse partners, but it was being driven by the IITA product manager, Dean. So he's the one now bringing the team together, steering the discussion, and actually steering the decision in terms of, based on what we have come up with, what should we prioritize on? Yeah. Yes?
First part, when you define the example, the main lines example, the product profile, like color of the.
Sorry, I'm not getting you.
Yeah, no. In the first part, when you define the product profile, the big part, for example, the crop system is in rainfall, is needed to add something like a requirement to the fertilizer. I think my feeling is right now we need to develop a new varieties in all the case with low input to products, the insumed for the fertilization, because it's coming to a bigger problem around the world. So in my point of view, we need to add like a requirement, because in the majority of the breeding program, we use the fertilizer like a common, that they are a lot of this resource. But nowadays, it's not true. Will be a problem, because in my country, my farmer can pay the fertilizer, and it's possible in the near future the production would down now because they are not consuming the market, or it's a high cost, and I think will be a social problem in the near future.
Yeah.
I think it's important we pay attention right now and have action in our breeding program, because it's the same to the lack of water. We need to think and use better efficient water in our varieties. I think it's very, we need to think what happened now in the globe.
Wasn't that covered somehow in one of the
Yes.
features on market segment definition, like management or?
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Eduardo, and thank you for the question. So for every, those 8 parameters we showed, they're just guidelines that you can now extrapolate based on your situation and be able, if it's production system, what are the issues that are around the production system that are affecting that particular crop. For example, if you look at rice, as far as production system is concerned, you would have the paddies and you would have the highland, and maybe there are policies that are coming to say that we are phasing out, like, is it last month, Uganda, there was a directive that they won't have paddy rice anymore. So that's something that would fall under the production system. So it's basically using those guidelines to be able to see how to customize to the specific needs of your current situation in a given region. Yeah. Good. So we'll move to the target product profile. And after maybe 2-3 slides, we are going to have some group activities where Jan will take us through. So when we get to the target product profile, I think we are all in agreement that we first need to get our market segments right. Because with a very broad target product profile, you're not able to advise the breeder on where to focus, because you'll have so many traits. Where will the focus be? Again, if you narrow down to the nitty-gritties, then you will have target product profiles that are similar without differentiating traits. So it is good to have a good foundation as far as market segments are concerned. So in our target product profile, we have a template that has the traits that are required, and we'll look at the template. We also have the scale that is used to measure each trait. We have the minimum threshold required for each trait. Whether the trait is essential or nice to have, we'll get into the details of how you determine that. Then whether the trait threshold will be improved or maintained in the breeding, by the breeding team. Because we could have a very important trait, but at the moment, it is not a focus of improvement. Maybe we have reached the optimal level as far as improving that trait is concerned. And we can have also other essential traits, that those are the traits that we're improving to be able to meet the market segment needs. In addition to the traits required, we have the seed production and multiplication unique traits. We also need to put that into consideration. Again, you don't want to have a target product profile that does not also look at how the seeds will also be multiplied. There's also need to have a check product against which we are looking at, because the main objective of also having a solid target product profile is also to advise us during product advancement meetings. Because without a solid target product profile, then during during advancement meeting, then anything can pass. But if we have a good, solid target product profile, we are also able to measure when it comes to advancement. Are we making gains, or are we retrogressing? Or do we just have a product that won't meet the market needs? So it is important to know that all these tools that we are having are to help us eventually to create impact, eventually to make better decisions. Yeah. So for the essential traits, these are the traits that must be in all new products for a market segment to meet or exceed growers, processors, and consumers' requirements. And for these essential traits, they can either be 2 types: an improved trait, an essential trait that is an improved trait, or an essential trait that is a threshold trait. An improved trait, this will be the subset that has to be improved deliberately through the breeding process. And then the threshold is the one that is being maintained. So it has to be there as a bare minimum. We are not throwing it off. It has to be there, but the breeder is not making continuous effort to improve it. Either we've reached the optimal, or where we are at, there's no need of improving it further. But it has to be there in the target product profile. Then we have the nice to have. These are traits that they're not needed in all products, and you do not need them to exceed them for the product to be accepted in the market. So when you look at the essential traits, this is where really we have to focus, even when we think about our market segments. You also do not want to have so many traits that you're working on because the market segment was very broadly defined, because it will make the breeders' work very difficult. So this is an example of a target product profile, a spring wheat target product profile. We have the base information. This is information from the market segment sheet that we saw that you would transfer here. Then now here, that's where we have the traits that we've talked about. In terms of, you're looking at the crop type traits, the grain color, processing, consumption traits, nutrition, and we have agronomic traits, disease traits, and you're able now to put the traits, then you have the scale, then you put the minimum score. Again, you would have the comparison, the benchmark, and you would know what you are you're comparing yourself to as a form of improvement. Because again, we have benchmarks in the market that have specific traits that maybe we could be looking at or looking to improve whatever we are working on. And from here, you can see for the essential traits, it's either a threshold trait or it is an improved trait. And this is what now the breeder would be using to improve. So you can imagine if the target, the market segment is so broad, then you would have a very big number here. Well, this is not an optimal example because you just have one thing that you are improving, but there are others that you can have 3, 4 that you could be improving. But you can imagine if you have, let's say, based on the exercises we've had extremes where you have even 20 traits that have been put in a target product profile as improved traits. And the question to the teams have been, how will the breeder work with such a target product profile? So the most important thing is to have an optimal view based on a very well-defined market segments. So unless there are questions, I'll invite Jan to take us through the next discussion, where we are going to look into target product profiles. Jan? I think I'll get you the... Who has the microphone, please? Good. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the next, we'll have a group activity where we'll divide you in at least 2 groups. Do we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, maybe 12 people? 2 groups, 3 groups?
2 is fine.
2, yeah. It's a really small group here today. And the purpose is for each of the groups to kind of divide it so that we have good gender representation in each of the groups. And also, I want you to really, for most of you, take off your breeder cap or your biometrics cap and really put yourselves in the shoes of somebody that is looking at marketing or thinking in the context of climate change, or a nutritionist, or a pathologist with the idea of, looking forward, as climate changes, how will diseases evolve? in the region that you're focusing on for your product, and then define what a product profile is. Again, you know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here necessarily, because we know there are products out in the market, right? So as Agnes talked about, so there's a baseline of things that we know that are already exist out there in the marketplace, right? That is our baseline. And then how are we going to improve on that? What are essential traits? Let's define that. Let's look into the future, because as many of you know, any crosses that you are making today would not reach the market until 6 or 7 years at best, right? If you work with a root crop, add another 2 or 3 years to that. So just, you know, keep those things in mind, and again, put yourself in the shoes of, you know, somebody that can take a different perspective, and then, you know, one of you maybe can take the role of a breeder, but that would be the maximum. I really want each of you to think from a different perspective and really put yourself in the shoes of you know, one of these other disciplines, to say, okay, have you looked at you know, the need for processing, for production, you know, taking it through a factory, what is essential for a root crop to, you know, go well through a factory. You know, as we're looking at yield, is it yield per se? Meaning, you know, for example, if you're looking at a root crop, is it tons per hectare of a crop? Or is it, you know, starch, extractable starch yield? So after it goes through the processing, how much starch can we extract from this root? You know, what are some of the traits that really are important? You know, because when we talk about performance or we talk about yield potential, you really have to look at things in a whole. And you know, as a nutritionist looks at things, you know, again, if nutrition, if it has a yield penalty, then maybe it's okay to have a little less iron in your crop if it yields better, because then the total harvestable iron per hectare is going to be greater than just focusing only in the iron trade, you know, just as an example. And we can go on and on. So really put yourself in the shoes of somebody, and let's divide. Agnes, you want to help me divide teams or point? I don't know if we want to go 1, 2, 1, 2, and
Maybe
we just want to make sure that we have a good balance of gender and skill set in the teams, in each of the teams.
Should
Go.
we focus on the crop that we do this exercise, or we have one?
What did you do last time? Did you just give one crop for both teams, or?
Let's keep it constant. Can we do cassava? Or it doesn't cut across?
Only one cassava.
Oh, one cassava. All right. Which crop? Potato? Yes.
So how many potatoes? 3 potatoes?
We can actually do 2 crops. So one group this crop and another.
Okay. So we'll have one do potato, one do cassava group, okay? So even though if it's okay that if that is not your crop, you still can look at it from, again, the perspective of a socioeconomist or a gender specialist or a climatologist. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, you want to just...
Let's start 1.
1?
2.
1, 2.
Yes.
1.
So 1 will be here, 2 will be there.
And so I know it's a short time, 15 minutes. You have
Which
to...
crop is 1 and which crop is 2?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Let's...
So the one in that side is potato. Potato? Okay.
we were thinking to have 1 root tuber and 1 cereal. So we can either do 1 potato, 1 maize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, let's
maybe
see.
tell them.
And let's look at the gender balances there
Yes.
about it too.
So John, the discussion is mainly about how we organize the multidisciplinary team, right?
The main purpose of the discussion is really looking at things from a different perspective, and multidisciplinary team, and then how would you come up with a target product profile?
We want to see the gender balance. Kindly get to your group so that we can be able to.
Oh, folks, we're unbalanced here. We need to change this. Sorry. See, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So
That's balanced now? Yes?
well, they're going to be discussing this.
Markers here? Both orchids. Great. Okay, it's fine.
So Agnes, can you help us start? For example, when we say considerations, can you give us an example so we can...
One, you need to have the team in mind because we've had the challenge of just having breeders. So it would be good to lay ground, which is the team that would help to come up with a functional target product profile. Then now you can put down the...
So like what's the breeder we are going to provide, or what's the market product manager we will provide?
Yes.
And then we can assign, we can summarize the input to the target product profile?
Yes. And
So-
then at the end, at the end,
It's rolled, right?
We put some roles there, like
Yeah.
breeder, product manager, gender specialist.
then at the end, you can have now some of those traits that Jan was talking about for the specific crop. You're looking at cassava and also having that futuristic view, which are some of the traits that you would consider.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's about the first two rules.
Yeah, outside.
And
You mean when do we have it?
about
Right
the-
after the exercise.
So the exercise, we can say they have coffee at
So there
half
will
past.
be
We will
breeder
get back
and
at
there will
quarter.
be
Okay.
For your potato. You want a potato that has...
Maybe to interrupt before you
Yes,
proceed,
please.
it will also be good to have in mind who are the multidisciplinary teams we
Yeah,
are talking about and what their input would be. Then by the time you're coming to what are the traits, already you have an idea who is bringing what input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we define the consumer, the breeder.
I can work with the breeder.
Then we have a pathologist, physiologist, a nutritionist, and
Yes.
I will be more like ecosystem services. I don't know anymore.
Great.
Think about that, but I think it would be good to have an ecosystem.
We don't have an economist.
Anyone can.
You're a breeder too?
Or gender specialist.
Yes.
Gender specialist.
Maybe you could even be
Wanna take
noting
that?
them down, you know? Yeah.
Just that
Oh, maybe I can.
Because the potato processing is important.
Okay. And then, as a physiologist, you look at it from a climate change perspective. Is that okay? And then, what were you again? What pathologist? Yeah, good.
Okay.
Great.
So you wind up at 1:30. You have some tea. Then 1:15, we come for presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
They're already writing.
1:45. So in half an hour.
In half an hour, they should be done. Have had their tea. Then come back.
I guess the national partners are also part of the.
Yeah.
Where would you put the national? Yeah, because they also are leaders. They also have their.
This can be
They are
used
part
for
of the
practice,
system.
like a crop management or something.
That's it?
Yeah, because if we start splitting it into pathology,
Crop protection maybe.
No, bioscience specialist,
something like that, bioscience specialist.
which will have all biologists, pathologists, entomologists, and whatever logists that can be thought about.
Sensory remote.
Maybe we just put operations, all the agronomy part.
No, the modelers, the crop
Or
modelers.
maybe just
Crop
agronomists.
modelers.
Agronomy?
Yeah, just put agronomists plus crop
okay.
modelers. Well, agronomists with specialists, specialists in
Yeah,
crop
because
modeling.
How about,
Yeah.
how about food scientists?
Yeah, let's put food science.
Food scientist, nutritionist.
Yeah, nutrition specialist.
Together.
Yeah, food nutrition.
Food science.
And probably with stuff there.
As a processor expert.
That's all?
Yeah.
We
I
can
think
come
so.
back later on that. I just want to
So we have the exercise till 1:30, then we'll proceed for tea, then get back at 1:45 for the presentation.
excuse me, can you use breeder and pre-breeders because they work together in the development of pre-breeders?
Okay, so for input, can you give us an idea, just to help us start? You mean like, what is the type of input that you expect from a breeder?
So input is the right term?
Sorry?
So input is the right term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from different scientists.
Yeah. So for the breeder, maybe I would not start with the breeder because the breeder has the full view, sort of, in most cases. But now for the production manager, now we can be able now to put the various things that, because the breeder will have like the full view of how our target product profile should look like. But they will be able now to be able to advise, for example, when you get, let's say, 20 improve essential traits, you already can give guidance that that's not workable. So the breeder is sort of having an overall view, but the rest have individual inputs. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think so. We still need to focus on crop, right? So we are talking about cassava. So maybe we focus on one product.
Yeah.
So maybe one a very simple one is cassava starch. So usually, I mean, the final product is starch. So it's kind of simple.
I'm going to step out for half an hour.
Okay. Okay.
So the size,
Compare.
All right.
Leaving at 11:30.
Oh, all right. It's okay. Yeah. Good job already. Thank you.
So, but I'll be back in half hour. I just need to get my things packed up.
All right. Okay. Great. All right. Thank you so much. Yes.
By chance, bring my charger.
Yes.
Because I got a Spanish lesson.
For the air fryer.
Thank you so much. It was very helpful.
Let me know if you need it again.
All right.
Because I won't need it that often.
Okay. Thank you. At least the hard work was already done of customizing for the group. So yeah. Thank you.
even a consumer in gender special, as cooking, it's more time for usually the woman is in charge of the cooking. You want some nutritional trait? Vitamin R? Yes. No, but also antioxidant.
has projection, like the change of the market.
Also, the base that is on the market,
Yeah.
which is part of the product profile. What variety do you want to bid on the market
Yeah.
with this product profile? And
So it's kind of the check varieties
Yeah, maybe a projection kind of thing.
Variety.
and also. Sorry.
Yes.
That's good.
So who are our competitors and what do they have? So what we need extra, on the top of what they have to be, something. I think this covers.
Okay, that's all, right?
Yeah.
And gender scientists.
specialists,
I think they look at those gender-specific issues like cooking time, the things that really impact the women.
So I think gender is mainly about consumer and grower, right? I mean, so the target is the woman grower, woman consumer, what they
Processing
want.
quality, processing quality.
gender-specific traits.
Traits, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the product profile, right? It's just about traits.
Yeah. So it's
For example, maybe
that's really general, right?
The mention of the product profile.
Okay.
So we can just.
So, and then it,
Now we are going to compete with them. What a great team we have.
okay, what else do we need?
And I was playing the role of the ecosystem. So I want something that can be intercropping. I want something that can allow to have diversified crop in the system. So probably like rice. So it would be like more carrots and things. Easier to do.
Yeah. So what gender scientists can contribute to that?
Yes, they can also contribute to the registration of traits. So that's not the guy that the product goes to gas emission, but but probably the level of consumption of or low input. Yes. A lot of pest control is done in potato for labeling.
Yeah.
Pest tolerant to pest control, you add adaptation to like natural pest control. Because from the to reduce the use of
Disappear.
other control or chemical control.
The pathology.
So I don't know potato cultivation, there's not a lot of nitrogen.
Nitrogen is not so much, but phosphorus and
Phosphorus.
For example, I
Phosphorus,
Herbicides.
no, sorry, herbicides, insecticides. Fungicides. It's huge. They apply 3-4 times during the crop season. 3 months crop season. So to put you we need all of that. All pathologies in the lake.
Like filling that table, like saying if this trait is essential, nice to have.
Okay, so now I can
You
choose.
also have the potato virus X and Y. PVX and PV. PVY, PV, PV. Potato virus X and potato virus Y.
So
P. Potato.
So what
Sorry,
is
check.
And PVY.
So I think this is human, so it's no.
Okay, now it's
standardize the method.
So it's
So the color, the
phenotypical and model. So how about the FAO data or the
Right. Focus on the product profile.
Yeah.
They might help you define the thresholds.
Yeah.
Or just make sure that they're right numbers. Don't go too broad to the entire process.
Defining the market segment.
Yeah, I think probably.
yes, so that we go. So what we, how did
it should be, shall we say, key trait for defining the market segments?
Yes.
So I would say key.
Because once you define it, you are not breeding for it. It's set.
Exactly. So that would be like what they say, the threshold trait.
Yes, like what? Yeah, maybe like green color, white, essential. Yes.
Another important trait that I remember is the tuber shape. There are some can be round or a cylinder. You find some the range that things that you can apply over sheets or French fries and so on. So usually, like what the scene in South America, the upper cylinders and
That would be to have to be considered with that.
I think it's one of the mandatory things for the second part.
So all of these ones will be the key trait to define the market segment. Okay. The fast cooking, size, the nose sprouting, and the multi-purpose, which is the consumer characteristics. That will be it's not a key trait, but it will be an essential or nice to have. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Remember for the threshold, for the essential, there is threshold and improve. There are those that it's a basic that has to be there, and there is essential, improve, the one that you have to. Now the breeder has, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, shall we take it down? Yeah, we'll pass the petition with pathology. So the pathology, it will be essential trait. To improve because the evolution of the pathogen and so on.
Essential.
What do we have in terms of gender?
They told me the most is the easiest. We'll get to the easiest and then after that we'll get to the excellent.
Because this potato,
it's mainly about the treatment requirements for
I don't know.
right?
We breed for iron and zinc.
Well, there is a vitamin A, right?
It's not orange potatoes. It's more with sweet potato.
The vitamin is essential.
No, it's that I haven't heard from vitamin A in potatoes, so I'm not sure.
I don't know. I said
So I think it's maybe better iron.
Iron and zinc content.
we are not potato specialists.
Yeah.
Orange potatoes.
Like the purple potatoes.
And those will be essential to improve, all of those ones. Fast cooking will be essential on the
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much the same.
But aren't we making it too complicated? I mean, we're asking a lot. We should make choices. I think.
Yeah, we could have nice to have traits. Right? I'm thinking that fast cooking is a nice to have. Improve the adoption. Fast cooking is determined by.
Just have a few minutes to wind up. Few minutes to wind up. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
They play a more important role in the market segment definition.
Maybe assume the market segment is already
They might still play a role, but I think that's where the major role is in the market segment. Region.
2 minutes to wind up.
Okay, 2 minutes.
So the next is, so here is mainly about the baby impact, right? So that may be kind of new.
Sitaki watu wawe na njaa sana kabla sijamaliza. And I still have some. I still have some ground to cover.
I'll finish.
So this one is made about quality or processing?
Nutritional and quality. Because
Yeah.
I think it's not, and processing also, because it's not only for nutrition, also it's food nutrition and processing.
Yes, all.
No? Yeah.
So I think now let's sum them up to, I think that also the question is about the new, in the future, right? So how they work together to fit the need of the future, like what, like the drought tolerance, new diseases, new insects, and climate change, sustainability. So
Yeah, I guess all of them have to look at the future somehow. Not a single one to accept.
Did you give it?
Question. With which frequency you need to review the product profile or the breeding pipeline in one ratio or something else? Because this whole science need to have meetings for in 5 years, like this kind of frequency in order to review and update all these product profile finally. And this is important because they need to connect with the leaders on the science initiative, something else, in order to have to say, like I drive a car, you need to improve that direction, because you need to review is we are working well, but we need to understand that they need to, the leaders, I don't know the level, because we have different levels in our centers. So.
Maybe to answer, there are two points of contact in terms of looking at the market trends and what we already have. We have the advancement meetings that you have those discussions. Then you would have, let's say, biannual review now of the documents in terms of are there any key trends that have changed significantly. But for the product advancement, it's more frequent, and it's also a platform that you can share any new upcoming trends, even as you wait for the biannual meeting where now the whole documents would be looked at.
So you review it in the advancement meetings, but you don't really change it, right? Until you have come up with a product.
Yeah.
So when you finish the product, let's say that you actually release the product from that product profile, you have to create a new one.
Yeah. Now for that, once you have met the need, then unless there are other issues that have come up, like what she's saying, if there are new things that have come up that would be a build-up on that pipeline, then there would be need to maybe to make additions. But once you have met the need, then the objective has been met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because probably in the near future, we have this advanced meeting with the information of the breeding program.
Exactly.
With the statisticians and say, okay, we provide the information, the different data. And after the idea is they review because we have different kind of people. But you have more like a prediction or something other program. Say, you have a problem in these traits because you have any change or it's something else. Because it's difficult to work along without have this kind of input.
True.
You understand? So, and this is advanced meeting need to, like I said, to programmer with in our reading program, right? Okay. True. We need to. We don't have this kind of.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think going forward, it's going to be more structured. Structures will be put in place by the initiatives in terms of now what we are talking about, using the documents during advancement meetings and also having now the strategy meetings where this is reviewed to see whether there are any upcoming trends that would warrant some changes or improvements. Yeah.
So I think
Good.
probably in company they are every 3 years or 2 or 3 years.
Two.
They have strategy
At the
meeting,
moment, the
right?
discussions have been 2 years,
Yeah.
but it's not yet been, but the suggestions are two biannual. Yeah.
For us now, it's the first step to build it up, and
Yeah.
then we can have that to change.
True. Yeah.
So
Great.
As of now, the idea is to have a product profile for each market segment.
Yes.
So what about the opposite way? Having tentative mega product profile for each crop and assigning them to different market segments.
Mhm.
Does that help to optimize the breeding program?
Now, the thing is, at CG level, you have the ones, the sub-region level. And now we expect now to be the mega one. That now the NAS partners also look at and see how to customize further. So already we need to refine it at the 1CG sub level to make it functional for the NAS partners now to customize to specific needs based on local needs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it doesn't need to be so, because it, like the example you saw, brown, cowpea, medium, what do you focus on? When it's too broad, it doesn't serve the purpose of directing and giving the correct insights. Yeah.
So
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's fine. I can discuss with you.
Yeah. So I think we can, because of time, we can have our.
We won, yes! We were first.
Please, let's be back at 1:45. That's like 7 minutes from now. Is it?
Oh, really?
10. Yeah, 10 minutes. That's okay? 10 minutes, yeah, so that, because we still have
Yours
some.
a bit cheap.
We still have some ground to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Proceed.
Sarah.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I guess the current approach is that, the current approach that we have been handling for a long period of time is like make
A threshold that they're not too small. I wouldn't cause them large, is maybe a bit too much if you want them.
So every
Yeah.
10 minutes 40, we are back. We are back at 1:45. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And do we have a name for
The
break now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So without America.
Because they were there, I think they can prove it.
Okay. Good. So we okay.
And what about the color of the skin? Is it purple too? The color of the skin?
We talked about the flesh. What is the color of the skin?
Purple. It's all purple.
Purple. Is it purple to me?
It's for French fries also, and for the chips, yeah. It's true, because it's popular also, the purple chips. And they're more healthy than the white chips.
Okay. Who's going to present? Ceci. You put me a big challenge.
But you can always ask for the special discount.
Yes.
Oh, great, right on time. Right on time.
Yeah. So, yeah, my departure time is 11:30. Well, I have to be at the guest house at 11:30. Let's put it that way. No.
All right. So would you like to do the piece for,
Yeah, I can do that.
yeah, what you can do after this, it's the other, so, so I can project this for now. So they will do the discussions.
Yeah.
Then immediately after you can take through the
Sure.
that, then I'll get back. Okay.
Sorry about it.
No, it's okay. It's
I
okay.
checked with Gustavo and he told me we better leave a little earlier
Earlier,
because it's uncertain with traffic.
Okay.
I see uncertain, so.
And let me tell them to get in. Then we can. We need to get in. 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 Yeah. We need to get in. We need to get in. Yeah.
Oh, that was like 2 minutes.
I wasn't able to take my cup. No, rather than have it from inside. So we changed a little bit because Jan will be leaving. So the last part that he was doing to do at the end of the presentation, he'll do now. Yeah.
Okay.
Immediately after the presentation. Then I go after him. Yeah. All right. Let's get in.
Was enough.
Yeah, next year you have more. No, I don't think you have.
Yeah, we need a bell. We need to hire. I don't know who is the loudest.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah, we are starting.
Have an afternoon.
All right. Well, welcome back. I hope you had time to get a little extra energy, a bit of rejuvenation. And so now, after you've been able to come up with some ideas of what a target product profile for your crop would look like, you have the opportunity to present it. So if you have the spokesperson for each of the teams, and you know, you have about 5 minutes or so to come and explain what your approach would be to develop target product profiles, and what you found is important, what perspective that you think is important to include to have an objective product profile for your crop. Okay, who would be the spokesperson for the potato?
It's very messy. So we started by defining a bit each one as a role. So we had economists, pathologists, physiologists, nutritionists. We had many people in a pluridisciplinary team. And then what we started to do is to say, okay, let's focus in South American potato. And then we ask each one what is his key traits. So we had the processor that say that it's important to have a purple cylinder potato. We had a consumer that listed a list of traits, so I don't know if I will go into the detail, if I have 5 minutes to read out. We had gender nutritionist, we had the pathologist, we had the breeder, we had the climate change expert, and we had the ecosystem services. Person with the sensibility of ecosystem services. And so we listed the traits, and then we decide which are the key traits that will define the market segment. And so basically this is first a processor that will closer to the consumer, that will really define the market segment, which will be the purple potato for South America. And then after that, we review each trait all together, and we decided if it was essential to show, or essential to improve, or nice to have. And there was one nice to have, but probably evolving. So I don't know if I have the time to go through all of them. Probably.
Let's focus on the traits that you decided are key traits and which ones are, those that might become essential in the future.
So we have essential to improve traits, which are basically the iron and zinc and antioxidant traits, more like the nutritional quality traits. Essential to improve would be the yield. Essential to improve the drought tolerance and the heat tolerance and the reduction of input, which is basically phosphorus use efficiency and disease fungi resistance. And so we have the essential threshold, which is the trait that we need to fix in the breeding program and then maintain them as they are. And that would be the fast cooking for saving time for the consumers. The size, the large potato, the no sprouting trait, the dry matter content that needs also to be considered as essential threshold. And then we have the blight resistance and difference virus, the PDX and PDY, that are essential to as threshold. And that's about it. And then to have, which is easy to harvest, fast cooking, and then the adaptation to intercropping, which may be a trait that in the future could evolve with more consideration about ecosystem services and climate change and sustainability of the system. About it, and if my other colleagues from different areas want to comment. As a potato breeder, we have only one. I have used your ideas in things. That's a very nice group effort. Thanks to the group.
Thank you. And any questions or comments or suggestions from the group? Here. So, as people experience with quantitative traits, all of these are quantitative traits. The more quantitative traits you add to a target product profile, the more challenging it becomes to deliver on that, right?
We have a few major traits like disease resistance, and
Right. So that's a challenge. Any potential approach to ensure that we can deliver on several quantitative traits? How would you approach that as a breeder? So this is basically the ideal potato. You come with that, and remember, since these are quantitative traits, you have to set the range of what is acceptable, right? You can have absolute resistance, but that is often with many diseases that is not realistic, right? Or not necessarily essential to have, basically the highest resistance that you can get. It's not always essential. Can you tell you a story about that? But the point is, we need to make sure that now, the breeder has to decide how is he going to deliver on that. What would the approach be as a breeder? So many traits, and you're trying to deliver on those.
So maybe narrow down to, and the selection index.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, selection index, and narrowing it down to what is the highest priority versus the other priorities.
In potato, we can have different lines. It's biofortified is different if you want to have a line with drought or heat tolerant because we separate this.
So it is to split
different target product profile. Different also in the management of the farmers, the new varieties, because they, in traditional, the native potato in Peru, for example, they don't use fertilizer. It's that the yield is so low. It's near to 5 tons by hectare. But they don't use products. It's like organic manner. So it's very important thing because it's don't pay attention they in the yield, but you have a clean product. It's because we focus in late life because if you improve the resistance, you use less agrochemicals. So this is like, and also the next step is focus less chemical fertilization because the excellence of breeding. We talk more about the yield. Increase the yield go to the, because you understand you requirement that genetic gains in only thing the yield, but we need to go more vision about the health to
the environment. That's why we put the ecosystem services.
So prioritization comes back down to prioritization. I heard somebody say about index, developing an index, and part of making a good index is weighing. Based on priority, then you put weights on the various traits, so that when you move forward, you get to where you want to go. And
what else? Another thing I want to add is about the protocol for evaluating the traits. So usually for quantitative traits, there is very high environmental effect. So if our protocol are good enough to reduce the environmental effect, we can get high quality data that will also help us to make good decision. Even we have several traits.
Okay. Good.
Shouldn't those weights already be part of the product profile? Because isn't that also determined by the market? Because as breeder, or I mean, if we want to determine those things, it's also difficult without information sometimes.
Well, there are different ways once you get to the breeding stage, and Eduardo and his team, I can't remember who covers it exactly, if it was Marley or Christian. Marley, who's going to cover indices and how to come up with a good index. So I think it is important to set the priority and then the range that is acceptable, and then you have to translate that into an index. And Marley will cover more on that.
Will it be also to see, because all those traits, we don't know the correlation, and if the correlation is negative, then maybe define different product profile according to, because it will be very hard to improve to traits that are not positively correlated. And so, according to that, maybe
we'll cover that. We'll cover that later. Yes, we're not going to go into that at this point. Yes, no. It's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. But
because we just listed it, but
yeah. Question.
Yeah. My question is this the exhaustive list of traits, or it is for a specific market segment? That's my question. If not, then that's why we do the profiling, right? So first we have to do that for different market segments, and maybe we should come up with the prioritization and develop the breeding pipelines to address those.
well, that's. You want to come on this one? It's on this one.
Yeah, in general, that it was for a particular market segment. It's purple potato for South America. But still, it's a very. I cannot imagine how the MIPI initiatives is going to work with this kind of demands. But also, I think that as a breeder, I will start according to the complexity of each one of the traits, all of the quantitative. But some of them you can dissect with particular traits, like cooking time. It goes to dry matter, or how you can dissect those, and that will make a little bit, not easier, but less difficult the work. And then prioritize also according the importance, but it's not
it's not just the economical importance, but also if you have to invest less in the breeding, starting from the baseline that you have in the crop. So if you have to invest less in late blight, and you have just to add few genes for resistance, then it's easier to go there and achieve that, and then go to the next layer of complexity.
Yeah, for simple genetic trait, again, Eduardo and Steve will cover that. There are strategies to deal with that. So.
There's also the threshold trait that once we have them, then we just maintain them. So the trait we improve, which would be challenging, and we need to see how many we can include in the must-have, the threshold that we need to fix in the breeding program. Will have to be there. But maybe also a way to get the progress in this scheme is to concentrate on the threshold trait that fits in the population, and then.
Yeah, that's one approach. Okay, is it the cassava group? Is that? Thank you. Yes, great job. Great job. Thank you.
Let's see whether I can get the slides.
Which one do you want? It's okay.
So the slide is just to show that there's an example product profile that we have. Yeah, so I think for us, that's it, thank you very much. So we use a little bit different style. So we just use cassava and an example to help us to bring out the process. So I think first we discussed which kind of scientists, all the rules will be required to generate a product profile. So here I'm going to read them out. So it's breeder or pre-breeder, product manager, or it also can be market intelligence, and gender specialist, statistician, seed system scientist, social economist, and grower representative, consumer representative, and some other plant pathologist, and also bioscience scientist, and the last two will be agronomist and food scientist and nutrition scientist. So all these will provide input when we determine the product profile for breeder. So they might, so I believe maybe it is not in the current table now. Probably in the future we need to include the heritability of different traits and also the cost for phenotyping different traits. Where I think a breeder can provide this input, and also some others like their opinion about essential traits, nice to have traits. And for product managers, so they are going to provide information about the percentage of the market, and also confirm the benchmark variety. And the very important rules is they are going to provide projection about the market. I mean the changes of the market, the different products. And for the gender specialist, it's mainly about which traits is related with gender, what activities males covered, and what activities women is mainly involved in. So that will help us to define the nice-to-have traits and also the essential traits. Statisticians, they are going to provide independent data analysis, and also help us to define the threshold to understand the variation, the heritability. So that's the major part of the statistician. So also probably the statistician can also help us identify based on the data from FAO stats from different databases can help provide the information about on the top of the table. So the seed scientist is for cassava is mainly about to help to build the threshold about propagation rate. So it's clonal propagated crop. And for social scientists, let's see. So it's mainly about the impact about the product, about the market, the impact assessment. So this is mainly about kind of the value of the market, and also the social impact in terms of reducing poverty, reducing hunger. And for the growers representatives, so I think they are going to provide a major input about the insect, the disease, the agronomic traits, and also it will help to prioritize the different traits. I think so. The different traits should have different prioritization. So this might be also will be added in the next phase probably. So and the growers will provide those prioritization information, and also to help to determine the essential traits and also nice to have traits. So then the consumer representative will be quite similar. The traits will be mainly about quality. And for plant pathologist or bioscientist, it's mainly about disease, about insect, and also I believe in the CG system there is pretty good survey system to understand the broken up of different disease, outbreak of different the disease and the insects. So they might also provide the projection about the disease and insects. So the breeding team can, this will also help the breeding team help the breeding team to work on certain diseases or insect before the outbreak. And then the agronomist is mainly about the agronomic traits, and the food scientist and nutrition scientist will be mainly about quality and processing, and also nutrition. So I think we all agree all these scientists should be involved and to help providing information in that table, and that the product profile will be used in our advancement meeting, and the scientists will be involved in the advancement meeting, and probably within 2 or 3 years there will be strategic meetings to have some big adjustment about the setup of all these different traits in the product profile table. And I think probably after we go through this, so probably the challenge is how we are going to put all this expertise on the table in the advancement meeting. So this might be something we need to think about. Yeah. So that's all. I don't know whether our group member have anything to add. Please.
Questions, comments? So just one remark here. And I've been on the road with sales agronomists when I was starting out in breeding. And so you really get a good sense of what growers want. And then in my other jobs, I often would talk to consumers and say, okay, what are you looking for in an onion? You know, what does the shape need to be, or what, you know, what size and what kind of traits are you looking for? You know, trying to directly. So that information is very important. However, we need to translate that then into quantitative targets, okay? And consumers nor growers can necessarily do that. And so that's why we need some of these scientists to take all these things in consideration and put that in data. And so personally, I don't see a great benefit of having these people at the table necessarily. I mean, we have to have their information. We have to have that information, but I don't think they have to be there at advancement meetings.
Perhaps through the
Yes. Perfect. Yep. Exactly. So that's just one.
As a strategy in the breeding program where we planted the materials in the field condition together with the farmers, we use participatory variety selection, and we use this methodology in order to know what they need, what they is thinking about the potato varieties, for example. This information is important to put in the databases and exploited the information for probably, like you said, in the product management, right? But
right.
Not necessarily, I understand that they participate in these meetings, but we need to use the data because
Absolutely.
we continue to work with this important information, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, good point.
I also think that based on the growth and to determine the breeding scheme, and based on the traits, understand if we are doing population improvement or parental population improvement or introgression of new traits because we don't have them in our current pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. And again, Eduardo and his team are going to cover that. You know, how do you, if you don't have the traits that are necessary in your base population, in your core breeding population, how do you bring them in? And without losing any genetic gain.
Effectively.
Right? Effectively. Right? So you don't want to dilute your gene pool, your elite gene pool, by just bringing in wild germplasm, making crosses left and right with whatever. So, and they will cover that. Any other questions or remarks?
We did very different things, both groups, so I'm not sure if we didn't understood or because we list in this one we make like a product profile and then they discuss how to get to it. So it's
Yeah, so both kind of highlighted, you know, one focused more on the process and the other group kind of, you know, focused on you know, what is necessary in a target product profile, right? Mm-hmm. What is an example target product profile? So, you know, one is not right and the other one is wrong. One is a more process focused that should go ahead of the other, right? So through this process, then you would achieve that. Right? Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Great job. Great job. So let's see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Since I have an appointment to go to, I'm going to make an early field tour.
Yeah.
And so we're switching things around a little bit in the schedule so that I can cover this. Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't worry, Agnes will go back and discuss these things.
I had put it already.
Yeah, these you already covered. Okay.
I had put the slide already.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Did I go too fast? Yeah, right. I was confused where we were at in the presentation. Okay. So, alignment of Module 1 activities with the initiative. So, under the 1CG, we will have new initiatives. And we want to, there have been a lot of questions on, well, how's that going to go? How's that looking like in the future? What is going to happen to EIB Module 1? And so, one of the things that is necessary, we want to have an effective resources allocation and management. And a lot of that will be considered under, MIPI. So, effort prioritization. Okay. So, I went the wrong way.
Yeah.
I see. So under Module 1, they've contributed to various initiatives within the 1CG. One is called the Accelerated Breeding Initiative, which is primarily focused on the breeding and the crops. Then Network for Enabling Tools, Technologies, and Shared Services. This is now renamed as Breeding Resources, BR, instead of this N for ETS. And then Market Intelligence and Product Profile Initiative. So these three initiatives, Module 1 has contributed or nearly written, in the case of MIPI, they've nearly written this whole initiative. And here they've played a big role in especially Work Package 1 for AB, and then also contributed to now breeding resources. And ahead of that goes the BPAT, and then some of the results outcome will be contributed again under seed equal. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail, where the contributions have been. Okay, for MIPI, they've contributed here market intelligence, Work Package 1, Work Package 2, developing of product profiles, what we covered just right now, and then looking at variety turnover. Variety turnover has to do with management of the portfolio of varieties, right? You want to phase out old ones, bring in new ones, and you have to do that responsibly. Pipeline investment cases. What is the value of the breeding programs? What is the return on investment by focusing on this or that market segment, etc. Under Module 1, they've contributed to refocusing. So really aligning breeding teams and breeding objectives with farmers' needs. These farmers' needs are covered by MIPI, right? And then under Discover, Trade Discovery and Deployment. What just came up in the discussion, if we don't have these traits in our elite breeding pool, how do we bring in some of these traits that are needed? And then Work Package 5, Accelerate, Population Improvement, Variety Identification. Again, going back to some of the traits that have been identified in the target product profiles. And then for the network enabling tools, strategic modernization. This goes back to what Eduardo does, really thinking of how do we most effectively manage all these traits and deliver on these target product profiles. And then, where it comes into effect, cost-effective shared services, where can we benefit from combining resources and really helping us deliver on these target product profiles. And then performance management of consistent connected operations. Again, going back to how do we, what process do we put in place to, again, screen for some of these traits and then deliver the data that is needed in the decision-making processes. So, and then under Seed Equal, they had some interactions, and just last week you had a big meeting with the Seed Equal group. Maybe Agnes can expand a little bit more on that later. But so really, again, broken down what Module 1 has done. and has defined and helped develop. So market segments, again, last year, big effort was primarily retrospective. Product profiles is looking into the future. Where do we need to go in the future? And then, you know, a justification for investments, genetic gain, how do we measure this achievement? You know, what progress are we making? And then the stage gates. Those are the important meetings and the decision-making points at which a product goes on to the next step. So, you know, what are the critical decisions? How do we then make sure that we can deliver on these, deliver on the traits that need to be, end up in the farmer's fields in the end. Okay, and so these are all the connections where all these parts of Module 1 have contributed to each of these work packages. I should have. And this is the team that has done this. Peter Coldrake, he's an ex-Corteva person who's been a great consultant for us, done basically full-time work for us. Jason Donovan, again, strategic crop market economist, bringing in a great perspective from the socioeconomic perspective, and then Agnes as a market strategist, bringing in a tremendous perspective from industry. So, thank you very much. It's been great to meet with you this morning. I'm going to step out and turn the time back over to Agnes. Put the meeting in your hands.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. So, we change gears.
I have a question before we move to the next section. So,
Yeah.
considering that like a breeding cycle usually has 5, 7, 8 years depending on the crop, how often should we like review the market segments?
Mm-hmm.
How often should we like analyze again, make this exercise, and revisit that?
Mm-hmm. Good question, and I think we covered it in that group. We talked of there's a plan to be having biannual meetings to look at trends that have changed, because given that for breeding programs you can keep changing, but there are some aspects that could be changing slowly, and we also need to look at the future. So there are plans to be having biannual meeting. It's not yet been solidified, whether it's after 2 years or 3 years, where we'll look at bigger trends and be able to tweak where there's need to tweak. Yeah, but it's not something that can be done very regularly, because that would really have so much impact. Yeah. Great. So we'll change gears. The presentation that Jan has just had was to be the last one, but because he's leaving, he was leaving, that's why it has come ahead. We were to have continuation from target product profiles and come now to investment cases. Our request, in the interest of time, I'll go through the whole presentation, and then maybe we can have questions at the end, because there's still some ground to cover. So I think we remember this from early morning, the opportunity and also the investment, and that's what we'll be getting into. And this is just to show us alignment of pipelines and market segments and the various scenarios that we've come across with the data that we have. We have some pipelines that are serving, let's say, just one market segment. We have others that are serving multiple, and we have others, the breeding programs, that are serving maybe a common market segment. And we also have what we talked about, market segments that have been identified, but no work is going on. So we also have some market segments that have already been identified, but there are no pipelines that are already working on that. Some of them could be future markets. Others need to be explored further to see whether there's any effort that should be put or not. So far, this is the situation we are in. We have 279 that have already been aligned to market segments, to pipelines, and 39 that have not been aligned. Out of the 419, we also had 101 ICRISAT crops. That some of them could be taken over by CIMIT, some of them, so there's still discussions, and so that's why we still have them, because some of them could be adopted by CIMIT. So what we've done for every market segment, we've put them in tiers based on the level of effort that is going on. And for tier 1, this is any market segment that is being served by a full breeding pipeline. Tier 2 addressed by an early or late stage variety identification pipeline. Tier 3 could be back crossing. Tier 4 could be late stage testing and identification. Tier 5 is where we do not have any pipeline that is serving. And we talked about either future markets or market segments that a decision has not yet been made whether work is to be done or not. Again, going back to what we had, we have various scenarios as far as market segments and alignment to pipelines. Why we are showing this is because ultimately, this should help us as far as decision making is concerned, and we'll have some examples of how this is. So, for example, if you have this is a hypothetical situation for purposes of examples and showing us how this information is to help us in better decision making. If we are to assume that you have in a pipeline, you have a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, tier 4, and this would be the investment based on the tier. And let's say in a situation you have 6 market segments that are in tier 1, based on this, that would be 6M. Then you have tier 2, 2 market segments in tier 2. Then you have 1 market segment in tier 3, accounting for 200K. And you have 2 market segments in tier 4. And you can see tier 4 is 100K. So times 2, that becomes 200K. So the total investment would be, let's say, 6.8 M. And this is what we've just talked about, the tiers. How if a market segment is tier 1, it's full effort. It is being addressed by a full breeding pipeline. And I didn't go through this because I'm feeling rushed for time. But we can see the various stages. So it depends. There are some market segments that will be served by, you have a whole, the whole stages are being put into consideration. There are others, let's say, let me give an example. Let's take maize. And you want to, let's say, biofortify using, let's say, zinc ion. The question would be, do you need a totally separate market segment for that with a full breeding pipeline? Or you need, let's say, to take an early maturing, another market segment that is already existing, and then through back crossing, you can be able to achieve that. So that's the technicality behind the tiers, the level of effort, whether you want a full breeding pipeline with all the stages, or you want to do late testing or early testing, and that determines the level of investment based on the tier. So in a pipeline, you could have such scenarios, and when you have such scenarios, let's say the next example, this was to build a base. The next example would be if there's an increase of resources and you need to make a decision. The moment we have been able to group the market segments into tiers, it is very easy for us to make a decision. Either we could still, the same program, you could have 6 market segments remains constant at tier 1. But because you have an increase of 300K, maybe you could come here and look at tier 4. You remember from the previous slide, the beginning, tier 4 had 2 market segments. But now you can review and say you will have 5 market segments in tier 4, and then now you're able to justify how you have deployed the resources that you have. You could also have a situation, the same situation where you have 300K. Again, you could really make a decision maybe to add on, to have 3 market segments that are in tier 2. Then you have added money here. And then for the one that had 2, you upgrade to 3 market segments that would be tier 4. And you could also now upgrade and see whether you have any market segment that you are not working on that you need to improve. Basically, why we are showing this is to back why we also have to look at the various pipelines and the market segments that are being served in that pipeline, and how we can use this sort of classification for resource allocation and management. You could also have a situation where it's a decrease of resources, and with the same situation, you can have market segment. You remember these were 2. You reduce, again, based on data and also based on the discussions that we've had, that you would need to look at how is the trend of this market segment going. Is it the future, or has things changed? Definitely it's not an erratic decision one is making. It also has to be backed by data. Again, here you can see we have reduced from 2 market segments from tier 4 to just 1 market segment. And again, you can be able to logically allocate resources based on the situation. Yes? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
Yeah, have you talked to Peter to see can you work with a breeding team?
Okay, maybe you can come closer.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have worked with any breeding team, you and Peter, to see how difficult or easy it is to actually align these tiers.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe, I mean, we have the breeders here and they can give us their experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems that some of the programs are better defined than others. So I guess just assigning and saying this pipeline is actually at, or this market segment is tier 1 type, this market segment is tier 2 type.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, has this happened, or we are still in the process maybe on first mapping the market segments, and this is just for, like you said, second phase or something like that?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Very good question. Actually, in the file that we have for the market segments, all the market segments have been allocated a tier based on discussions we've had with the breeding teams. What now would be the next level would be the resource allocation, because there were many questions in terms of why do we want to classify market segments. And this is the logic behind why we would want to classify the market segment. But to answer your question, the current situation is all the market segments that we have, the 419 market segments, have been allocated which tier they fall on, and that has been based on discussions with the breeding team. Now, the next step would be how can we use that information as far as decision making are concerned. And these are scenarios we created just to begin that discussion. And yes, we do recognize the complexity. Some breeding programs could be advanced, and this could be something that they will be able to implement immediately. Others, there is still a process of learning and also even tweaking the current market segment to see which tier they fall under. And so different CGs and different crops are at different levels as far as such an implementation is concerned. Yeah.
How do you determine the amount that invest? Because it's dependent, right? Example, I know because I work at Biofortify also, the determination of the content of mineral is that the price is higher. And if you want to screen the material in early stage, you need a bigger investment. The idea is how you determine that probably they are a template. They relate that important trades with the amounts we need to invest in the pipeline. Yeah, right. And this is very important because nowadays we estimate the money, but don't pay attention about the trade exactly, because we work separate with quality labs, for example, and they have received a amount of money, but not necessarily cover all out that requirement of the breeders. You understand?
Yeah,
So we need to look at more about the point of view of the breeding team in order to achieve the goal.
Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah, it is clear. And that really also ties with the question that Eduardo was asking. And it's more like we are in that stage where we are gathering as much information as possible. For example, even costing for breeding programs has been a hazy field in terms of what is the actual cost in terms of some of the trades, like what you've said, the various stages, what is the actual cost? And I believe this being the beginning of selling those concepts to the teams, then it will be easier to fast now collecting data and information that would help us now in future to be able to use such tools for decision making. And like I said, there are some CGs that could be advanced as far as such information is concerned. Others are at a very preliminary stage, and I believe we can cross-learn from each other. Yeah. Great. So we'll move on to investment cases and putting in mind the files we started with in the morning. And so again, just for emphasis, once a market segment has been identified, the opportunity stroke impact within each market segment is described based on the parameters that we looked at, and that's what will help us in prioritization. And we're going to look at an example of CMIT, durum wheat. You remember the template that we had, the dashboard. There's such a dashboard for all the pipelines, the 279 pipelines. And these are just extracts from that to be able to see where are we headed. So this is durum drought-tolerant input responsive pipeline. Let's separate. Now we're in pipeline, not market segments. This is irrigated optimal durum, and this is heat-tolerant durum. Again, why we want as much as information as possible as far as decision-making is concerned, if you would look at just this in isolation, maybe looking at hectares, maybe it would raise many questions in terms of why? Why do we have such a high investment as far as irrigated durum is concerned, yet the acreage is lower compared to durum, the heat tolerant pipeline. Then we look at other metrics that would help us also to see maybe why that decision has been made. And you can see when you look at total population and rural population, you can see that actually when you look at the drought tolerant and input responsive and the irrigated one that had less as far as acreage is concerned, then you can see that it has a higher population versus the rest, and maybe that's what advised the decision. Again, this is data that we are still trying to understand in terms of what steered the teams to have such discussions and to have such parameters and to have such investment given to the two pipelines. Again, looking at population in poverty, you can see durum heat tolerant versus the irrigated. Again, you can see that, that you have lower metric on the irrigated. Again, when you look at the people that are undernourished, the irrigated, the metrics go up. So, like I was saying in the morning, these are some of the things that we need to refine and really give the backing data why some of this information looks this way. Because again, when it will go to defining the investment, it cannot be something that we are not so sure that is far off from the reality. And this is just an example of when we are going through the data, some of the scenarios that we are coming across, that again, the multidisciplinary team will come and help us to be able to either review completely the outlook as it is or uphold it based on the information that we'll get from the multidisciplinary team. But data in isolation may not give us the clear picture of what's happening if there's no input from the multidisciplinary teams, and also verifying the information that we got from FAO and also World Bank.
So at this, looking at that final graph, would
Yeah.
you say that this pipeline that has the least investment should have a higher investment because it's serving the number of rural population undernourished is higher, so that is one of our targets as CG centers, and the number of people undernourished in footprint is also higher. Is that something that you would conclude?
The thing is, like we said, when you define the market segments and the pipelines, it depends on what is the objective. There are, for example, based on different funders, there are funders that could be funding the program, and their view could be, we want to serve the people that are undernourished. Their focus may not be the people who are living in poverty. So such data need to be verified based on what is the objective. We wouldn't say that this one should be the one with higher or not higher, because like you have seen, when we started from this example, you can see this, the level of acreage, but when now you look at the population undernourished, sort of justifies. So the question is the breeding program's objective to serve the people that are undernourished? So it's really dependent on the metrics. And that's why we are saying of involving a multidisciplinary team, people with a view of the whole program, the breeders as well, and the other team to be able to see what is our objective, and based on these metrics, are we meeting our objective? Because actually, if we are to go graph by graph of the 279 pipelines, some of the data is quite shocking in terms of prioritization. Again, we also talked of future markets. You may find a pipeline that really the metrics, everything is very low, but the investment is very high. So again, we'd need to go to the team and really ask for justification in terms of why was this decision made? Is it because it's a future market that needs to be focused on right now, or what is the situation that led to a pipeline with very low metrics, as we would understand them, to have a very high investment? So we are still in that process of questioning the data. Like we said in the morning, it's just, this is history of what we have done, but there's the future of now getting into deeper details of what this information really means, and whether it needs to be reviewed or it needs to be upheld as it is. Yeah.
Is it also because the Durham-Tolerant pipeline maybe serving the second tier or tier market segment?
Yeah, those are the things that we need to look at. What is the underlying factors that are giving? There are so many, we can't look at data in isolation. There are so many other supporting information that would give us a full view. Why was this decision made? But if we are to look at a graph in isolation, it can be very misleading. But once we have it in context, then you're able to understand why the team made the decision they made. Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah.
So all this data are available in the website. We can go to the website to generate the figure what we want.
For now, the data still sits with us, EIB, because we are still refining. But once we are done with that, we are handing it over to MIPI, and I know it will be available. But right now, there are still discussions we are having with the teams, and especially on some of the questionable data, based on the analysis that we are doing, to be able to refine it before it can be made public. Yeah, but this is something that will be available.
But for 1999, Xiaofei, you can access the data quickly. Nah, just kidding, Xiaofei. Yeah, that data will be available soon.
I just wanted to ask, to justify the biofortification pipeline, wouldn't we need also... to justify a biofortification pipeline, wouldn't we need more than population undernourished, maybe population with hidden hunger? Something like that.
Population?
With hidden hunger or malnourished?
Sorry, I can't hear you for some reason.
Population with hidden hunger.
Okay, yeah. Good observation. And that's why we are talking of multidisciplinary team who would be able now to also build on what is missing or enhance what is already there. Because again, we could just be addressing calories here and we are not addressing the hidden hunger. So there are other metrics that would really enrich and be able to drive decision, and that's a good observation. It's discussions we've had in terms of, in this particular case, we could be looking at just calories, and also now for some of the pipelines where there's biofortification, but maybe we are not dealing with all the deficiencies that are there. Yeah. Thank you.
When you talk about the investment for the breeding pipeline, also I'm thinking about the number of countries or NARs where you want to impact. It's true that about the population, but finally, this is the population impact. But the expenses or the money we need to use in the breeding program is more related to the number of the environments where you need to plant or test the materials. In one country or only in different countries, you need.
I'm not sure I follow the question.
The idea is when you talk about the investment, is talk about the money we need to use in the breeding program, right?
Yes.
So the money is used in the logistic, in the number of environments you need to tester.
Yes.
You agree? So my feeling is we need to understand the number of the countries where we need to have our activity plans. Also, the impact information is very important because it's said that the donors, what is exactly my final impact, but not necessary to say because I have more impact in more population, we need a lot of money in my breeding program. You understand?
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's help us, but that money I need in my breeding program is we need to consider have other points.
But just to add there, Lisa, I mean, that's exactly why we are defining the market segments, right? Because we need to be focused. The market segments specify the region, specify the countries, and actually the donors don't want to invest anymore in programs, right? They want to invest in market segments. They actually want to say, this is the market segment that I want to invest. And then a CG program has to say, I can make it. I can actually deliver on that market segment. So that's the direction. That's why we need to start defining the market segment first, because I understand that the current approach was, okay, we are like a global institution, somehow we're trying to just cover as many environments as possible. And that has, of course, worked, I guess, as good as it can be. I guess the only issue is that the donors are not that comfortable. It's not that it doesn't work. It works because you have shown it. You have your materials outside. They are being a success. But the donors want to have more clarity on how their money is, if it's really going to the exact population that they want. And the only way for them to control that their money is going exactly to East Africa, to this country, to this population, is that you can say, these are all the available market segments. Then you invest where you want, and then I put the money in that pipeline that will serve it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you, Eduardo, for that. Good. So I think we will rest the investments and I'll change gears. This one is just to provoke our thinking in terms of, in the new context of what we've just discussed. We also need to start thinking of product life cycle management, it's just mind-provoking questions that will help us in future to start looking at how are we also managing our portfolio within the market segments. So I think a lot of effort is put as far as developing specific products are concerned. You can see the discussions we've had. We were talking about target product profiles, and eventually now getting this to the fields and having the breeders work take a lot of time because it's a time-consuming and skill requiring activity to come up with the right product. But again, the question is, are we also putting the same effort as far as managing these products in the market is concerned? And what I mean by managing is also the awareness of how our products are performing in the various market segments that the products have been placed. And the reason why we want this is because like that discussion we were having about how often should we review the market segments, we also need to have an understanding how our products are performing within a given market segment. For example, if already a product is at the tail end and it's been phased out and it's no longer existing in the market, then there could be a gap that we need to address within that market segment. And that's the awareness that we are talking about. And also it will come to also resource allocation. For example, if you have a market segment that has so many products that are already serving that market segment, the question would be, are we also, should we invest more or should we deploy resources to another underserved market segment? So there's the broader picture of what we've talked about, the awareness of the market segment, but now we also need to know which are the products that are in specific market segments, how are they performing, and how are we planning also for the future? One, to avoid any gaps in the market, and secondly, to avoid a situation where a lot of breeding effort is being put in a market segment that is already being served by many products. So for product life cycle, normally there are 4 stages: the launch, the introduction, then there's a product growth, then maturity and decline. This is the ideal situation, but we also have to realize some products take different timings within these stages. There are some products that you would introduce and they take off very fast and really grow. Others reach maturity and they don't decline that fast. They really stay in the system for so long. So this is the general life cycle of a product, and we do have to recognize that different products take different stages. So as far as introduction is concerned, we are putting a lot of effort. Then this is the area that we need to also, again, it's not just our mandate. Remember, in this workshop, we are very insisting on multidisciplinary team. So don't feel the burden that now breeders are being asked, go get the information. No, it's the awareness. In view of the multidisciplinary team, some of the things that we need also to have in our knowledge is how are the products performing in the market. So more effort is required in this area. And I know in the initiatives, it's also part, especially for the CDQual, is part of the areas that we'll be looking at as far as product performance in the market is concerned. So just a few questions that we need at the back of our minds, even as we are working very hard to service those market segments. So what's the number of products that have been released in that particular market segment? What number has been developed through released are playing in the seed chain? Because you could have many that have been released, but are they in the market or not? What stage of the life cycle are they? And I think I explained this, the importance of having this. It's basically to make sure that we are not over-servicing a market segment, therefore we are wasting resources by really doing a lot of work in a market segment that is already being served, or having a gap in a market segment where we think it's being served based on our maybe perception of a specific market, but the reality is maybe there are already existing gaps. Then which products need further market support to spark growth? I know that's something that will be tackled by the CDQL initiative. And which products need replacement? What products are most feasible in the pipeline to replace the old ones? Do we have a portfolio balance status? That's what I was talking about in a given market segment. How many products are playing there? And where are they? Are they being phased out? Are they in the peak, or some have been phased out from the market? So this is just a simple template that maybe in our own small way could start off. For every pipeline that we are serving, we be gathering information with the help of the multidisciplinary teams to be able to know how our products are performing. So we have the pipeline, we have the market segments, we have the hybrid, the year that it was released, the product life cycle stage that is it at, and the performance and the action. And the action here could be maybe based on what we were talking about, the investment, that there's a need in a market segment where maybe investment is not being put, but when you look at the situation in the market, there's a gap and that market segment is not being serviced. Or maybe an action would be, maybe in this particular market segment, we need to redeploy resources and put in another market segment that is not being serviced adequately. And maybe you are asking about these sheets in terms of the product life cycle stage. This is just to show us in terms of where the product could be. A question mark could be a product that has just been brought into the market. You don't know how it's going to perform. So it's new, it's still being introduced. A star is a product that has really reached the growth and it's on its peak. A cash cow is a product that has plateaued. It's at its highest, but it's not gaining market share and it's not growing. And then this one is the one that there's no growth and it has low market share and it needs to really be replaced. So when you have a view of every market segment or a pipeline that you're working on, the situation in the market, you would be able also to make very wise decisions as far as investment is concerned. Where do you place money? Where do you redeploy to other areas? And this is what it would look like in real sense, where you could have products, and that's what we're talking about, portfolio balance. In a given pipeline or in a given market segment, where are the products as far as market performance is concerned? Do you have a lot of products that are being phased out? For example, if you would have a lot of products here and you don't have any product here, then it means there's a likelihood that we will have a gap because you do not have any product that will grow into the market. Yeah. So it's just to provoke our thinking, to look at breeding wholesomely, so that also the resource allocation and how we are able to really serve the market, we are able to serve the market adequately. So we can't overemphasize. Yes.
Yes. What is the parameters that you need to focus in order to classify our products in cows, stars, or dogs? They are little parameters in order we say, because you understand, probably my product is like a star now, but I have other probably is like a dog. Yeah. But we need to the methods in order to recognize and to do the analysis inside of our breeding program. You have this kind of information.
Yeah, thank you for that very important question. One, from a commercial perspective, it's normally the volume and the value. In our perspective, we could be looking at the acreage that that product is servicing. For example, if it's maize and it's a certain segment that you have, and you remember we had our metrics as far as production is concerned, and acreage was one of them, of the products that we have, estimates. It doesn't have to be totally to the dot. estimates how is the product performing, how much of the seed is getting into the market to serve that market segment. Of course, some of them are very easy to determine. The new ones that you have just introduced is very easy to determine. Where there's a lot of work to be done is it growing? Has it stagnated? Is it declining? Because now here is growth, here is stagnation, here is the exit because it is declining. So having those teams, the multidisciplinary teams that are in touch with the market, feed back this information would really help to know where are we, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where maybe a lot of resources are being put in a market segment that totally does not need any more product at the moment, or maybe underserving a market that maybe products have exited and there's an existing gap. Yeah.
So Agnes, in your experience, how big of a team do we need to actually, keep track of that information, the growth and the share, as you're describing? Yes, this multidisciplinary team, but is it enough with a small team across the CG, or do we really need a lot of people to trace this back?
Yeah, good question. Sometimes it's not even the team. It is the partnerships that we form. There are companies out there who are always collecting market intelligence. There are private sector players that maybe would be willing. Private sector may be difficult, but there are partners that would be able to partner with. Also, even the regulators really do have this information. Seed, like the seed, the AFSTA, the seed traders associations, they normally have data that would be able to advise how our products performing in the market. Yeah. So we shouldn't look at it from a team perspective, because it would be a put-off, because really it would require a lot of resource to be able to get such information. But we can leverage on partnerships that would be able to help us to get such information that would really be of benefit to us as far as decision making is concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you about partnership. Because I think whatever we're talking here is just the half of the story, because the CZ does not really has the mandate to develop variety and and then move in the next level. So it really depends upon how strongly we collaborate with the national partners and how we empower them. I think that's very important. And the investment that we make in the first half, I think we should equally consider about the investment in the second part as well. I don't know that I'm pretty new in CG, this kind of. I don't have much understanding, but I think there is some kind of discussion or some strategy on that part as well. Otherwise, the success of whatever we are doing here, all the efforts we are putting in different levels, really depends upon how the national partners really observe the knowledge and technology and product that we provide to them.
Good point, good point. There has to be concerted effort from all points. And it's good that we've started now thinking of it from end to end, from product till the market and the whole process that is involved. And also now mapping out who are our partners for every stage. Because everyone has something to bring. What we need to know is at what point does that partner get in and we get that input. And for the NAS partners as well, there's a lot of wealth of knowledge that they have because they are so much in touch with the market than how much the CG would have. And so now getting to know who is the right partner at what stage and what information I need to get from them, and then now tying that information into decision making would really help us, like you're saying, to make a broader, have a broader view and make the right decisions. Yeah. Any other inputs? Suggestions? So this work was not my own solely. We work with a team like Jan talked about. Please feel free to reach to any of us, Peter, Jason, and myself, for any questions that you may have, any support you may have. I believe we'll also be reaching out to you. Like I mentioned, we are in the stages of refining the information, trying to make sense of some decisions that have been made. And I believe from where you sit, you would really add value to the process. And so we'll be reaching out to you. Thank you so much. Yep.
Yeah. A question about the relationship between Model 1 and the different initiatives. We know there are at least three, at least two initiatives working on product profile. So who will be the leading role in terms of develop the targeted product profile?
Okay, so we have Jason. Jason will be leading the market segments. And we have Vish, who is based in Nigeria, IITA, who will be coordinating the target product profile work. And I believe like Jan mentioned, we had a workshop in Nairobi last week where we were laying down the strategies of how to approach. So I believe in the near future, they'll be able to reach out and proceed with the work. Yeah.
So I think now we mainly work on the work package 1 in ABI to develop the target product profile. We have, at the breeding program, we have very limited connection with MIPI or with tools initiatives. So
that's how it is at the moment, because what has been happening is laying down strategies, and for us, we've been completing the work so that at least there's a base for them to start off the work. So that's how it has been right now. It's not been rolled out. Actually, the meeting last week was to lay structures of how the work will continue. So in the near future is when you will start hearing from them. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question is about the cost calculation. So you have a system, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I think in the 1CG there's maybe the reality is the fixed cost. So the scientist cost is so that's if we want to maintain the 1 FTE for the scientist, we have to have the budget available, right? Otherwise, if we want to have 40%, 60%, we are not able to maintain that position. So this is the reality. The reality we have is pretty high fixed cost. So how do you think about this?
Good question. Good question. And that will go back to the first presentation in the morning, where we talked of how various CGs and their representation across the regions and also the crops that they're dealing with. So it cannot be looked at very simply that we have this resource here. It is also the scope in terms of how many pipelines are being serviced, how many crops are being looked at, what is the representation at regional or sub-regional level. So there's a complexity that comes with it that you have to look at it wholesomely as opposed to in isolation. Because you could have, yes, a scientist, but maybe as much as it's a fixed cost, serving several pipelines, and that would be able to justify that cost, that is a fixed cost. Again, it would also bring us to some of those slides that we've just looked at in terms of what market segments need to be served better, so that we're able to realign the resources. So I believe more information will be of help to us to already use the resources that we have right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So probably the 1CG kind of will. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to any of us in Module 1. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're a little early for lunch, so you guys have a few minutes. Lunch starts at 12:30. It's right outside, so you come out and you go to your left. You'll see like a table there set up with food. So you have a little bit of a break before lunch.
expect a different strategy to replace a variety that is here for, let's say, 30 years. Because sometimes we can have a good product, but farmers actually are so tied to that variety that they just don't want to change it. Once they know they can recognize some values added to the new product, they just don't want to change because of some perceptions they have.
And we have a long lunch, so we're back at 2 p.m., right, Brenda? Yeah, 12:30 to 2 p.m. So, yeah. Yeah, we like to take time to take lunch, right? Yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah, good question.
Make some digestion. Otherwise, you come and then you just fall asleep for another hour. So by the time that you come, you should have, digested everything.
Aspects on product adoption. I'm saying among the work that will be done is the behavioral aspects on product adoption to make sure that whatever is placed in the market, we also do understand what it takes to have that shift. Because sometimes it's just brand loyalty. It may not even be getting the treats right. So also how to approach different markets as far as product placement is concerned. Yeah.
And also maybe understand why.
And Brenda will resend the link again for the Dropbox.
Yes.
So you have access. Actually, we're going to need it by Wednesday. There's a couple of software to use from there.
Wow.
Also today, if you can, start to check that your computer actually connects properly to the Wi-Fi, that would be nice. You can see the password on the walls. The password is A12345667. Make sure that you can connect, because we're going to use internet for an activity after lunch. So, yes, please bring your laptops today, in the afternoon.
Traits like taste and color and all those things.